Hello and welcome to our fourth session of the Community Champion Certified Community Engagement Academy. It has been really good having the opportunity to meaningfully engage with you all and hear how you all are meaningfully engaging in community. I wanted to take some time tonight as we are wrapping up the things we've learned, the frameworks we may have reviewed together, insights, ahas. I want to spend some time tonight getting a chance to kind of open up there with reflection, just to lift up for those of you that have been coming to the sessions. I wanted to give us some time to open the floor and you share one thing um, that you have reflected on in this experience in the academy. And that's how we'll introduce ourselves and check in tonight as we are preparing for our fourth and final session. So if you want, we'll go through our rules of decorum and then be prepared to kind of reflect and share on that. So I'm going to pull out my PowerPoint. And as you know, we've kind of been looking at introducing this as an opportunity to share and amplify how we are meaningfully engaging together. And so what we'll be going over is something that we already have seen in email, we've seen in other meetings, but we're going to be going through them tonight. So bear with us as we read through and just really recenter ourselves as we are intentional about creating safe and productive space together tonight. So with the rules of decorum, are they showing up clearly on your screen so you can see them? Let's see if I can make it bigger.
No, they're kind of blurred.
Okay, I'm gonna see if I can make them bigger.
You could probably just scan them because most of us are familiar with them. That looks great.
Let's pull up here live. You all can see my screen clearly here?
Yes.
So when I blow it up, do you all see it clearly?
Much better, clearly.
Awesome. So as here, this is our final Community Engagement Academy session, but we want to honor everyone that wants to actively participate and to ensure that everyone has the opportunity to speak and do so in a respectful and safe space. We'll add that you adhere to the following rules of decorum. So you'll see sessions are facilitated, and I'm Shemekka, Ebony Consulting. This is an opportunity for you to share any written comments in chat directed towards me based on questions I may ask. And we'll also be looking at asking you all to use your hand raising feature. Let me make sure. Are y'all seeing a black box on your side? Oh.
A black box.
Okay, so there's nothing blocking your view.
Your face is, but I can move you around.
Oh, that's like
Your little screen. Yeah, I can move it around.
okay, so we want to remind everyone to please use your raise your hand feature, and attendees please refrain from personal attacks and or threats directed towards city staff, consultants, or other attendees or members of the public. We're asking that also be civil and courteous in their language. Insults and profanity, use of vulgar language, gestures, or other inappropriate behavior are not allowed. Disrespectful comments, questions, or jeering from the audience are not allowed. Attendees, oh, sorry. Attendees will not address anyone or respond directly to members with any questions or accusations. Attendees need to on the topic at hand to avoid bringing up issues that do not pertain to this particular engagement, which is about meaningful community engagement and better practices as such. And city staff, as you can see, will have be on hand and to take notes for future outreach sessions. This is the last one of this, so if there's any follow-up, you can contact city staff directly. Ms. Brenda Mills is here as a representative tonight. The consultants and/or city staff members have the authority to enforce the rules of decorum. Failure to obey these rules will result in an initial warning to discontinue the behavior. The next violation by an attendee will result in the attendee being muted in the meeting, and individuals who continue to engage in egregious or repeated violations will be removed from the meeting. We're also asking that any emails or other follow-up to city staff and the session consultants and/or other attendees would also and should also adhere to the rules above regarding excessive, inappropriate, or threatening messages. The rules of decorum are outlined for these sessions are provided to ensure that all sessions are safe and respectful environments and that all participants create respectful and safe atmosphere where everyone's feedback is honored. Is there anyone that has any questions about the rules of decorum that we've gone over so far tonight? Okay, looking through really quickly, no questions, we are good. So overall, our academy goals have been to understand and co-design community engagement strategies, centering people with lived experience expertise. This has been the centering focus of all of our sessions that we've had together, whether it was introducing frameworks, giving you opportunity to give you feedback and think through co-designing frameworks that work for you all in your community engagement. And tonight we'll be lifting up next steps that are available. We will be amplifying the bright spot of Rob having a community presentation coming forth. And then we'll also amplify some space and time for community resources to be lifted up. So we will pause here. It's going to be our check-in as to how we're showing up today. And just need to kind of sharing your name and sharing one reflection of the academy experience from our February, March, April, if you came to the leadership session, and even as recent as last week. We'd love to hear from you as you all are partnering with us today. Is there anyone that would like to raise their hand and go? I see it looks like, is this the McCaffey?
Yes.
Is muted? Well, I will mute them just in case that was an accident. Oh, there we go.
Sorry.
Hello, welcome to the space.
Hi, thank you.
Would you like to share a reflection from your academy experience?
From my academy experience,
Yes.
I really don't have one.
Okay. What brought you here tonight?
I'm a part of Black Men Monday.
Nice. Okay. So you have been hearing about what's going on through Mr. Bernard.
And others, yes.
Nice. Awesome. Well, I hope by the end of the night you'll have a reflection to share as you join us in this experience, and welcome to the space.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Rob.
Yeah, I guess checking how I'm doing, kind of burnt out, ready to get to my vacation. Let's see, reflection. What has stuck out in my mind a lot was that diagram that you showed, that was like community outreach on one side of the spectrum and community empowerment on the other side of the spectrum. And it's like, how do we get to the empowerment part? So I feel like that's largely a part of what I'm supposed to do. So yeah, that's my reflection.
Awesome. Thank you, Rob, for lifting up that reflection. You're talking about the spectrum of engagement. So thank you for lifting that up. Hey, Grant, you have the floor.
Now I can talk. Um, I have participated in a large number of community initiatives in the Asheville area over the years, and um, I'm glad that this was done. I'm just thinking of an EPA initiative, and they had a series of meetings at the Wesley Grant Southside Center. And I think a lot of people, I think I asked this and others I think asked this, what happens next after all of this engagement work, and what's the outcome of all of us coming together and the EPA being there and talking about community development, X, Y, and Z goals. And it just kind of, it gets lost. And I'm not, and you did what you were asked to do very well. And I said that you facilitated a good flow environment. And you didn't have to look up what flow meant, but I gave you a link on what flow was about. And it's a very good thing to be able to facilitate. It's very important to help people to create flow versus even more angst and difficulty. So it's a compliment from somebody who studies these kinds of things. But anyways, I'm just going to ask about following up. This group. I'm not going to do it tonight, but I'm going to, in the future, I'm going to ask, what do people want to do with this effort that we bothered to come together? Your efforts are part of this, Shemekka, and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
But thanks to everyone for doing this, participating.
Thank you so much, Grant. Powerful. What happens next is a big question, and that's something that we have to ask personally as well as collectively. What that means will be very different for everyone. So thank you for challenging what's possible for next steps. I think it's so important to keep the momentum going, so that at minimum means amplifying what you all are already doing, that you may have incorporated into this time commitment here. You connected it, you took information back to your villages and tribes and the people that you were representing. You shared the information, the content, and so it has this opportunity to continue to live and grow. So thank you for lifting that up in the space, and welcome to the space, Grant. For those that are just joining us, we are looking at just introducing ourselves with a check-in and a reflection on what the experience has been like with the Academy. What is one of your takeaways or something you want to lift up in our time? And this is kind of pretty much how we open up. Yes, Mr. Bernard.
I'd like to take a few seconds. My name is Bernard Oliphant. I'm from the community, been here for a while. And prior to some of you coming on, we talked about Juneteenth celebration and some of the activities that are happening around it. Mr. Thomas is going to talk about that a little more later, but I may have to dive off later and come back. But on June the 12th, which is the preceding week or the beginning week of Juneteenth celebrations, another activity that is going on is the Mount Zion Missionary Baptist Church annual clothing giveaway. And that clothing giveaway is for the entire community. It's free public clothing that in many cases is brand new clothing that because of COVID, many of us purchased but never got to wear because we indulged in the exclusion of being home and not getting out. But all these free clothes, they are either brand new or gently worn clothing that can help somebody in need. And we invite all to come out. From 9 o'clock to 1 o'clock, it'll be in the parking lot at Mount Zion. Now also, and again, that's the 12th of June. Also on your first question on what are we taking away from this CCC, some of the thoughts I've looked at is we've already mentioned engagement, encouragement, empowerment. Grant brought up involvement and what we do from this point on. And I also like to bring up the word commitment because this entire operation is like faith without actions. If we do not have something to act on, faith is dead if you do not have an act. So I think that this will bring things to light that we need to act on and not just bring up. And if we cannot act on it, it's dead.
Yes, Mr. Bernard, thank you for lifting that up. What I heard is that you said own your power in this knowledge that you're eating. You said exercise what you've heard by acting on it. Thank you for lifting that up, and we welcome that in the space. Absolutely, sounds like we have some alignment and synergy around staying connected and moving towards what happens next. I love it. Who else wants to show up and check into the space tonight? Yes, D. You're muted.
Sorry. Hello, everybody. My name is Dee Williams. I'm sorry I'm late. I had a real estate class for my license renewal today, and it kind of ran over time. I guess I just want to lift up that something that I've been wanting to happen and see more people who look like me become more engaged, more activists to produce tangible results in the community. One of the things that, and I was just on the phone too, is we have a negotiation with the Black ministers and the Black churches and First Citizens Bank for investment to build affordable housing. We'll be meeting with the Federal Reserve and the Richmond, Virginia Federal Reserve here in Asheville, and the CRA officers from Roanoke Rapids and North Carolina, and the leadership team here in Asheville, the executive team. And we hope to have some investments made into the Black community. This will be my second CRA, a Community Reinvestment Act. Y'all can Google that. Most of you already know what it is, but it'll be my second negotiation. It'll be not just me, but I have my data team. I have a mathematician and he's an African-American young man, Mr. Timothy Means there. One of my people who's going to be doing the recording. This is going to be a community effort. And few people I've trained. We will probably be either at the Wesley Grant Center or Commissioner Al Whiteside's offered us the first floor, so in the city, in the county building. It's a big deal for them, and we're going to be prepping them. My job is to prepare them and get them ready for that. And also, Dogwood Health Trust has provided a contract to D. Williams and Company, the corporation, as y'all know, to provide them with a 501c3. It's a lot of things going on right now in the community. They're going to two ways to build wealth, to build affordable housing, and also to provide technical assistance to low-income wealth entrepreneurs, primarily African Americans. So, and there's also another nonprofit that we created that's involved, and there's a social enterprise that we've also created that I think the Community Foundation of Western North Carolina provided that funding. But it's 4 Black-led institutions that will have shares in that social enterprise, and all it's going to do is underwrite the cost of their development. So there's a lot of things going on, I guess, in a lot of sectors. So I just want to lift all of that up and lift up, hopefully, all your efforts that you're going through now too. So just keep the faith, because we just, we keep the faith, but we also work. So, and Shemekka, I just can't tell you, you've been an inspiration just seeing how young and ambitious and on point you are. So we're just glad to have you here in Asheville to lead this initiative. So thank you too.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been an honor and a pleasure to learn with you all, and just to, again, here. Thank you, Dee. You are one of the champions, bright spots here that are definitely a reflection of what hard work, as you said, looks like. And so we thank you for being that example in the community. And thank you for helping bring others. It sounds like there's some opportunity based on what you're working on for some continued collaboration after this. So thank you for lifting that up, because we're already seeing what can manifest with Grant challenging us in the beginning. What's next? So sounds like I'm hearing what's next already. Who else wants to check in with us tonight? How are we showing up? What's one reflection we have with the Academy experience?
I'll tap in. I'll say thank you for actually coming and galvanizing support around this. And thank you to Auntie Brenda as well for doing her thing. Rob, thank you for being the leader that you are. I would agree that I think that Ms. Williams is a representation of a lot of things in ABO. And there's a lot of amazing things going on in ABO. My check-in is that I myself am happily pressed, stretched, and doing a lot of engagement outside of the actual work group, I'd say. And my reflection would be similar to what I heard so far, which is I would encourage folk to show up outside as cooperatively as they are inside and actually work to make those connections and so on. And actually have that continuation of actual connection and communication, activity and engagement. Nice to see a lot of familiar faces here.
Love it. Thank you. Thank you, Ty. Welcome to the space. Thank you for bringing that up and lifting that as some of your reflections. It's definitely feels good to see. I saw a lot of head noddings with you. So thank you for sharing. Is there anyone else? We have maybe one or two more space for one or two more to share. I see Daniel. I see Empress. Please feel free to share how you're showing up into the space.
Good morning. Good evening. I'm sorry. I'm driving. We haven't made it home yet from work and school.
Okay.
But I'm just grateful for the space. Just bringing some great minds together for Asheville. And I'm excited. I know I didn't do the follow-up like I wanted to as far as joining the group and helping to create a goal or an event for us to create a better space. But whoever wants to connect with me, please send me an email. I'm looking forward for the next steps. I'm here. I want to do work. I'm ready.
Awesome. Thank you. We love it. Welcome to the space. I love it. Daniel, how are you checking into the space this evening? If you are speaking, you are muted. There you are.
Hey, I'm here. I'm at work. I'm listening.
Okay.
I'm doing pretty good.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us. We are now going to skip back over to our screen share. Do you all see black boxes on your side? Nope. Awesome. We are good. So tonight in our conversations together, here's some things that you'll notice or be able to identify as to how we're spending our time and how our conversations are guided. We're going to be lifting up, identifying ways that residents like yourself are currently engaging. We're also lifting up, identifying ways engagement can grow capacity, and then also sharing next steps and reflections on what has already started with you all sharing what's coming up in the community. What are some ways to keep that momentum going? So I wanted to lift this up again as we shared last week. These are existing ways that you can engage. So this is, if you have not joined with the alerts, please consider looking up the Communication and Public Engagement Department link. There's also a City of Asheville Engagement Hub. And let's see. An equity-focused budget planning process. You'll see updates. This is the last session for that engagement wrapped last month as far as the public input side. I hope I did see some of you in the session that I joined, but if you got a chance to give your feedback, thank you for in real time exercising your capacity to have your voice heard and your suggestions and recommendations be considered in what budget engagement can look like. So I wanted to lift this up really quick before I leave it, turn it over to Rob. And this is something that I want us to be reflective and thinking about. And this is some slides out of a slide session that I had around, it was a partnership, equity-focused budget planning with department directors. And there was an activity that I lifted up in there that I want to bring here and kind of give you something to think about as we're moving forward, as you're hearing this presentation, and as you're considering what your next steps could be. And this is from a segment of Leading with Equity from Theory to Practice. And I've shared with you again examples and theories, thoughts, frameworks, and I've also challenged you to adapt it and amend it to what's practical for you and what you do in engaging community. And so there's this activity that I talk about with participants that lifts up 15% solutions. And so when we're asked to do something, no matter what position we're in, whatever power we hold, we actually have about 15% actual control over the work situation, the community engagement situation, or whatever it is that we're connected to. No matter what office you hold in the business, whether you are the department director or whether you are a volunteer or staff on the advisory board. In any capacity you're showing up, 85% of the broader context of what happens when it comes to how we may feel powerless and maybe not operate out of abundance mindset is because the first thing we think of when something may be asked of us or we may have a call to action is we start thinking about why we can't. We think about sometimes we have to deal with the thought process of why it won't work or what we don't have. I always challenge nonprofits to always say they don't have enough money, that they have to change their relationship with money and their mindset first, because that's not the truth. Because we have to operate and mobilize and exercise our journey as leaders to create an abundance mindset and abundance behaviors, and the manifestation follows that. And so a quick, easy way to do that is something that we see in this activity here with 15% solutions. So you may have seen or read while I was talking about where you see this show up and what barriers it may take or may happen when we want to take that leap. And so when we're looking at how we grow our capacity, how do we get involved? How do we take on this next big thing? I share this acronym that I learned in scale work that I was doing, and it says FAIL was an acronym that we learned that would mean first attempt in learning. And so for me, I added to that and personalized it, remixed it for what I needed. And what I saw is that it's the first attempt in learning while moving forward. Like you can't fail, stop, sit there and stay. I've tried this engagement thing. I've seen it fail for X amount of years. It's not going to work. I believe that if you're watching this or if you're here tonight, there was an inkling of hope that there may be one more chance for the engagement to get it right. And I'm hoping that we can take these tools that we've been talking about, these ways of being that we're adopting, like failing forward. We want to do that in a way that we build momentum forward in figuring out while we're going and trusting the process. And in doing that, it means we may feel like we're taking some leaps that we haven't done before, or we're trying something different, or it may feel the same, but we're hoping for a better outcome or a different outcome. Being able to be comfortable in failing or first attempt in learning it this way. Now I'll try it this way. And if it doesn't work, then that's my first attempt in learning this way. But it is a way for us to keep momentum and not get too discouraged by things, the outcomes not manifesting, not coming quick enough. Some of us may see that in our work. We may see that in how we're working with others. So these are some things that'll help shift your mindset to help what happens next and how you get there. So here's something I want you to reflect on. It's not something that we will probably have time to do tonight. We'll see closer towards the end. We may come back to this, but I want you to know that even as academy participants, whatever you do in your professional capacity and community, whatever you do, whether it's your faith-based community, whether it's your family unit that you are representing your leadership capacity over, or it could be an organization or an institute or convening or convergence, whatever that is, this activity will help you kind of shift the mindset of the abundance so that we don't feel like we're stretched so thin, so that we don't feel like we don't have everything we need. This is something that will help us activate using what's in our hands. That's a good step towards abundance, is not looking at waiting on that one more thing to come before we can start. It's what can we do around us and push the momentum. And so you'll see here it's asking us to reflect on this. What can we do in the next 30 days with your 15%? We know 85% systems, environment, barriers, budget, all those things that are so out of your control. If there's 15% that is in your control, if you can put 100% of your energy behind that, what could come out of your 15%? So what does that mean, Shemekka? Well, here's an example, right? Let's just say you have a budget. You're working with an organization that is in partnership with having a community event. And you go to the organization and you ask for support. And they say, oh, well, we don't have the money. It's not in our budget. We didn't plan for it. The abundance mindset shift that you as a community leader can offer is there some areas in your budget that could be reallocated to consider there being a way to find capacity around this partnership or this event coming forth? That's something they may not have even thought about. There may have been travel and lodging budget for a 5-year grant that they had that when, hey, COVID hit, travel and lodging saved a lot of money for at least 18 months that could be reallocated. So it just could be that conversation of, well, what could we do with this line item to reallocate it to manifest something happy? What can I do as a community member? I may not feel like my voice is powerful enough to change policy, but if I link my voice with the voices and the actions of others in the group, then my capacity has grown louder. Not only did the audience grow louder, but the active participants that have found themselves, found their niche, found their passion, everyone's activating 100% of their 15. When that 15 collect, you can imagine that roar is a whole lot louder than the 85% of the barriers that your roar has to bust down, or the helping or support to help guide someone else's thinking to shift to an opportunity that may not have been discovered yet. You know, that first no may be a not yet, or a no because they don't know another way. And I just challenge you all, as the leaders that you all are, find those ways that you can help organizations think out of the box that may not know how to meaningfully engage and partner with you, but may be open to learn. How's that sitting? How's that resonating? Anything circling around, please definitely raise your hand if you have a question about what's been shared so far. Welcome, Kelsey. So happy to have you in the space tonight. We're so happy to have you joining us, and we look forward to maybe giving you some time to introduce yourself a little bit later. So with this activity, this is something I want you to think about as you're listening to Rob and his presentation. Take some moments to think about, where is your freedom to act in your power, where you are. It may be a business owner, you know, it may be a community organization, it may be that you're connected to a nonprofit. finding those ways that you can maximize 100% behind your 15% power that you do have. Collaborating those 15% absolutely has results that manifest greater outcomes. Hi, yes, Ty. I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I was responding to you saying how that resonated with us. For
Yeah.
me particularly, it's empowering to think about my 15% being able to create like a wave within a pool, because oftentimes it is hard and you feel like there's like barriers and oligarchs and persons that are impediments. So it resonates strongly with me and gives me a lot of faith going back and engaging with a lot of younger people who feel that there is a lot of barriers to actually getting even contracts or engaging with a lot of the work that's going on.
Oh, I love it. Yes, absolutely. Engaging, building this in youth is a very powerful tool for them owning and holding on to their power, their capacity for power and leadership very young. They already are doing incredibly. And with this guidance and this mindset, we are helping to seed into the creation of the leaders that pursue the change that we are looking for. And so thank you, Ty, for lifting this up as something that you can connect with the young people you're working with. Yes, I see Grant has raised his hand. Yes, Grant.
Yeah, just something to keep in mind is this is it's there. He's kind of it's a percentage analogy, but if you think of whoever it is, your favorite trailblazer in history, your favorite advocate for justice, or whomever that may be, those are folks who play with that 15%. They're willing to work with that 15%. They're not just embracing the 85% of the status quo. Maybe it's the status quo, the systems, the inertia of the way things are. And if you find others, this is something I'm going to be talking about in the future, is a membership, a club, if you might say, of people who are like that. And I won't go further, but there's a book about the COVID-19 pandemic response, and small numbers of people who were at the beginning saying, we've really got to do a whole lot better in responding to COVID-19. And they called themselves the Wolverine team. And if people don't remember the movie Red Dawn and this group of kids who are gorillas called the Wolverines, that was the metaphor there. But anyways, you create a groups of people who are the innovators, social innovators, entrepreneurial innovators, whatever. And that could be done better, I think, here in Asheville. But you got a group of us together, Shemekka, so good job there.
Well, hey, I take no credit. You all convene yourselves, and I'm happy that our paths have connected and we have this chance to build and grow together. I will ask that if any other thoughts or reflections want to be shared, please put it in the chat, because I want to yield the floor to Rob and not take up any more of his time. You all, of course, know Mr. Rob Thomas. We are going to be hearing from our resident community champion tonight and hear from his community engagement work, the incredible things that he's been able to build and manifest, as well as currently working on and building on. So thank you for your contributions to Asheville. What I've really loved about learning about you, Rob, is your intentionality in keeping your scope or your lens very local, to localize and concentrate in centering Asheville. So it's been really good to see that resonate through your work. And thank you for your contributions tonight. I yield the floor to Mr. Rob Thomas.
Thank you. first, I would like to apologize to my team that I did not connect with them like I was supposed to. You know, I had to put this presentation together at about 3 hours of time, and I didn't invest the time and energy into doing this collaboratively with you all, and I apologize for that. I take full responsibility and burden for not making that happen. But I will go into the PowerPoint now. Let's see. Can everybody see this? Okay.
Yes.
So I'll be doing my PowerPoint is on community engagement. You know, following the theme of this workshop and the importance of community engagement. You know, community engagement requires public participation, which I'll break down in the next few slides. Also, this is about systems change. You know, community engagement is one part of systems change, and systems change is truly what I go for. And you have all different various ripple effects or outcomes that happen because of systems change, such as redirection of resources. You have policies that get implemented. You have different stakeholders now obtaining power to produce change. You have, you know, systems change. The ripple effects is truly really hard to measure everything that comes out of it whenever you change a system. But the thing about systems change is one person, two people can't do it. Like, you got to have a lot of people. You got to have a community most of the time if you want to actually activate and create true systems change. But anyway, community engagement requires public participation. Defining public participation is a challenge. The term encompasses a wide array of activities and processes, which makes it confusing for both civil servants who are simply trying to understand their responsibilities and for citizens who may have never attended a public meeting. To understand participation, we must not only define the term, but also explore some of its variations. And so you get into the types of civic engagement. To understand participatory engagement, it's helpful to begin with the distinction between direct and indirect forms of participation in democratic systems or public processes. And so indirect participation takes the form of electoral voting, financial contributions to political campaigns, political protests, corporate lobbying, and other activities that indirectly affect the outcomes of democratic processes by either one, influencing the makeup of representative legislatures, or two, influencing the elected representatives who determine public policy. Now, I will not spend a lot of time going in depth pertaining to indirect participation, although a lot of changes could be made here locally in this area as well when specifically talking about that. Direct participation, sometimes called direct service, is giving personal time and energy to address immediate community needs. Examples include tutoring, serving food at a shelter, building or repairing homes and neighborhood park cleanups, listening sessions, teaching seminars, and celebratory events. The defining quality of thin engagement, according to Leininger and Nabachi, and Matt Leininger and Tina Nabachi, are these people who wrote like several op-eds and different peer-reviewed journalist entries on community engagement, difference between thick and thin, and like how you actually get governmental processes to change to move towards thick and thin engagement. Anyway, they state that individuals are provided with opportunities to express their ideas, opinions, and concerns in a way that requires only a few moments of their time. Consequently, thin engagement activities are in some cases, but not always, quicker, cheaper, and more efficient, but they are less likely to produce the same beneficial results or levels of participant support that thick forms of engagement tend to produce. You know, this is the scale of conventional engagement. If you see at the top, you have thick, thin, conventional, thick, thin. Conventional engagement is actually the form that we're probably most used to. You know, it's the public meetings and things like that. I'll go into more detail. You have the city council meetings. Conventional engagement is what happens in most public meetings today. Citizens and officials are separated from one another. There are no breakouts or small group discussions, and citizens have brief opportunities, typically limited to 2 or 3 minutes, to address the whole group. You may notice a lot of correlation between this and some forms of indirect participation, because it can seem almost indirect sometimes, like you're just watching from the outside. Conventional participation processes are older forms of engagement that were developed to uphold order, accountability, and transparency. If thick and thin participation are desired to empower citizens, albeit in different ways, conventional participation is intended to provide citizens with checks on government power. It will be easy to say that conventional participation is bad, and that because these processes are often administered by the government, that all official participation is bad. However, many public officials and employees have led, organized, or supported better forms of public participation, both thick and thin. So the role of government does not have to be limited to these official conventional engagement. And also these have their context in areas where they need to be applied. So all conventional engagement does not necessarily mean bad. Official participation does not necessarily have to be bad. Conventional engagement remains the most common forms of engagement in most communities and school districts. School board meetings are perhaps the most well-known and visible form of conventional engagement in education, even in formal settings such as neighborhood associations and parent-teachers conferences. If you're familiar with Robert's Rules of Order, a lot of these meetings, completely run off of Robert's Rules of Order. And, I won't really go into the issues I have with Robert Rules of Order, but there are some cultural issues. Thin engagement. Thin engagement utilizes activities that either 1, educate community members about an issue, 2, solicit their views on the issue. Thin engagement is faster, easier, and more convenient. It includes a range of activities that allow people to express their opinions, make choices, or affiliate themselves with a particular group or cause. It is less likely to build personal or community connections. One way of summarizing the difference is to say that thin engagement allows you to reach a lot of people quickly, while thick engagement allows you to connect with a smaller number of people, but in a deeper and more substantive manner. And you see the examples: polls and surveys, door canvassing, public feedback, complaint processes, message boards, hotlines, and petitions. And whenever I get into thick engagement, you'll realize that thick engagement is kind of like a framework. So I can actually conduct a survey and do it in a manner of thick engagement. For example, I do surveys in communities usually 3 times a week, starting out with. I've been in public housing mostly, and we created the survey to where it would create open-ended conversation. So like you're sitting there, you're having a conversation with this individual, and it's not like a whole bunch of yes and no or on a scale from 1 to 10, but it's like, how do you feel about this? And we're getting a lot of qualitative data that we then, we have to spend more time and work to actually transform this qualitative data and codify it, I guess is the technical term of it. Thick engagement. While thick engagement can take a wide variety of forms in communities, listening sessions, healing circles, storytelling, targeted workshops, tactical urbanism events, and stakeholder interviews are some examples of where the thick engagement concept is currently being used. And I know some of you are probably like, what the hell is a tactical urbanism event? So a tactical urbanism event is like, if your target audience is, say, bikers or something, and you hold an event in a mountain range, in the mountains where you're going around on a bike course, and but this isn't just a celebratory event. Like, it's an event that you want them to see what the area is, and you plan to make changes to this area, and you want to get their feedback. But at the same time, y'all on your bikes, it's more personal. Y'all are kind of riding through, and you're like, so this is where we're looking at putting a trail at. What do you all think? It's highly engaging. That would be one form of a tactical urbanism event. The problems of conventional engagement. For local leaders who are looking for more productive and effective forms of engagement, it's important to recognize and understand the problems that can be caused by conventional approaches to engagement. Conventional engagement can exacerbate feelings of powerlessness or inefficacy among students, families, and community members, which then decreases political interest, trust in government, and public spiritedness, and damages perceptions of government legitimacy and credibility. Conventional engagement, conventional engagement can demotivate public participation, resulting in fewer people being involved in governmental or educational decisions that affect them, their families, or their children. Conventional engagement can be personally, professionally, and financially costly or harmful to public officials and administrators because they must organize and prepare for conventional meetings that often produce poor outcomes. And because it is frustrating, discouraging, and sometimes even dangerous to deal with hostile, uninformed citizens in public meetings. And when a conventional public meeting goes poorly, public officials and administrators are then disincentivized to organize or facilitate additional meetings to resolve the problems caused by the original meeting. Conventional engagement harms the long-term efficacy and sustainability of democratic processes and public institutions by degrading the quality of public policy and decision-making. When the public is left out of public decision-making, the resulting policies are less likely to reflect their genuine needs and interests of the public, and the policies are less likely to be supported by those who are affected. Over time, trust in public officials, public institutions, and democratic processes is consequently eroded. So like I said, it's not to say that all conventional engagement is bad, but if this is the only means of engagement that you are utilizing, it's going to create serious problems. The problems of thin engagement. The defining quality of thin engagement, according to Leininger and Nabachi again, is that individuals are provided with opportunities to express their ideas, opinions, and concerns in a way that requires only a few moments of their time. Consequently, thin engagement activities are in some cases, but not always, quicker, cheaper, and more efficient, but they are less likely to produce the same beneficial results or levels of participant support that thick forms of engagement tend to produce. Then we'll go into the problems of thick engagement. While thick forms of engagement offer many potential benefits, local leaders also need to consider that thick engagement generally takes significantly more time. That is so true, which also means that it may be more complicated to organize and may require more resources, staffing, or funding. In addition, thick engagement processes can backfire when they are insufficiently inclusive, such as when a process fails to include racial or gender diversity, different ideological or cultural perspectives, or representatives of groups that have been historically marginalized, disenfranchised, silenced, or oppressed. Proponents of thick engagement would argue, however, that more intensive participatory face-to-face forms of engagement, particularly those that are inclusive and diverse, are more likely to produce better decisions, better results, and greater community support for the eventual decision or outcome. And this is just some examples of some mixtures thereof, because the best form is not it's not an either or situation. It's truly when you utilize which situation and create a combination thereof. Engagement practitioners often recommend using a blend thick and thin forms of engagement, particularly given that involving larger numbers of community members in a thick engagement process is often infeasible due to funding, resourcing, staffing, or time constraints. In these cases, thin engagement can allow a greater percentage of the community to voice their concerns or perspectives, which can then be incorporated into a participatory, administrative, or representative decision-making process. And again, this is just like small, like there are so many next level things that aren't even included on this list. So how do we determine what type of engagement is appropriate? I would suggest that it depends on what kind of problem you are trying to address. For example, use the context of reparations. This is probably like the most talked about thing behind the scenes. For example, the problems of reparations. What kind of community engagement do we need around this particular issue? In deciding how to balance thick, thin, and conventional engagement, a conceptual framework from leadership experts Ronald Heifetz and Marty Linsky can be very helpful. They make a distinction between technical problems and adaptive challenges. Technical problems are ones where know-how and procedures for solving the problem are known. Solving the problem requires transferring that skill from those who have it to those who don't. And again, Ronald Heifetz and Marty Linsky, they attended Harvard School. Another resource or tool that I took a deep dive into studying is called the PDIA Toolkit. And the acronym stands for Problem-Driven Iterative Adaptive Thinking. And it is a framework to solve an issue. Instead of, identifying one solution, you identify multiple solutions, learn from what you implemented, and you pretty much do it all over again continuously, and you adapt. And that's how you work through problems. And that's the quick way of explaining. It's a lot deeper than that. Adaptive problems, on the other hand, are those where there is no clear-cut best practice or standard procedure. Adaptive solutions require experimentation, new discoveries, and multiple new adjustments. They often require people to change their attitudes, values, and behaviors. This distinction is critical because the way that we go about solving problems is heavily determined by what kind of problem it is. With technical problems, the way to solve the problem is to apply existing know-how. The person who should be trusted to solve that problem is someone who has the appropriate expertise. For example, if the problem is that you have a ruptured appendix, then you would want to go to someone, a surgeon, who knows how to remove your appendix. You wouldn't want some kind of open-ended thick engagement process. You want someone who knows what it is that they're doing. And that's for technical problems. With adaptive challenges, there is no established path to follow, and therefore no expert can lead the way. To address these challenges, we need to think outside the box and come up with innovative strategies. And the people that need to lead this process are the ones who are most familiar with it because they are living with the problem as an ongoing factor in their lives. The style of community engagement should be determined based on the nature of the problem being addressed. For technical problems, conventional engagement is probably sufficient. But for adaptive challenges, the community must be engaged by a thin and thick engagement because the community has to take a prominent role in leading the change. So to return to the question of reparations, is this a technical problem where the pathway is clear and known, or is it an adaptive challenge where we are in uncharted territory? And if we're dealing with an adaptive challenge, then what kind of engagement is needed? In summary, there are two broad categories of civic engagement: indirect and direct. With indirect engagement, there are three subcategories: conventional, thin, and thick. In deciding which form of engagement is appropriate, the biggest determinant is what kind of problem we're dealing with. For adaptive challenges, thin and thick engagement are essential because the community must take center stage in solving the problem. And that concludes my presentation.
Wow. Thank you, Rob. Before I share anything, I want to yield for sure to the floor. How is the presentation resonating? Are there questions that you all want to amplify? Did you have any light bulb moments, ahas that you want to share? I see some claps happening from Grant. I want to yield a moment to just, if you have a question for Rob, please raise your hand or put it in chat. And any questions that you had about his presentation, but definitely let's have a moment to open the floor for reflections based on what rich information he shared with us tonight. Thank you again, Rob. Very informative, a lot of information. We definitely appreciate you taking a moment to share your reflections around engagement. The floor is open.
seems like there's no questions. So, I guess I'll talk about my next steps. The next steps, of course, when I'm out in community, I'm not speaking about community engagement styles and breaking that down. I'm actually trying to make what happened, what all that looks like in real time. What that looks like is the government actually putting resources and money into creating these thick and thin engagement processes within community and guiding them into being organized so that they can have agency and a voice at the table and not have to be represented by individuals that do not truly represent their best interests. And behind closed curtain and behind the scenes deals, truly community and empowerment is the end goal. And how do you get that? You got to create a multitude of Black leaders. Like, it's got to be multiple Black leaders within every community around here that get pushed to the forefront. We need all the Ties, we need all the D. Williams, we need all the Empresses, we need all the Brother McAfees and Brother Oliphants, and we need all of them, because we're all going for the same thing. It's just where a lot of us are attacking it differently. But all of our works have ripple effects on the others' works. And that's just the way it is. Like, we're all part of the same thing, even though, my ideology might not match every other person's ideology that I'm in this with. But I do completely understand that it truly takes us all to really do it. Like, I don't have all the skills that the other individuals have on this screen, and neither do they all possess the same skills that I possess. But all of these skills are needed. We all have our purposes and we all have our roles to play, so to speak. So my next steps is pushing to actually see that realized and move from small community outreach initiatives to true community empowerment and agency. Some of our, it's so lopsided. Some of our communities here have more power and agency than others. Some of them are still being ignored, and we got the solution. We just gonna apply more police to it. And it's like, come on now, people ain't committing crime because it's not enough officers. I've never went out and committed a crime because I was like, you know what? It's not enough officers out here today. It's a good day to break the law. Like, that's never been a reason why I committed the crime. So you got to truly, and that's just one thing, but we really got to look at why we are at where we are and understand how we got here, and then do what's necessary to change it. Like, this ain't about blaming somebody. This ain't about blaming people. It's about changing and moving forward into the future. And the reason why I'm always talking about the history is because to even understand where we're at, you got to know the history. That's the first step. But you can't get stuck there. You can't get stuck at the history. Like, the history is just so you understand the problem. So then now you can move forward and address it and not look at what you're doing as charity, but as justice. And that's pretty much I think I took about 20 or so minutes.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate that. Thank you for adding to. Grant, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that whether it's Kennedy School of Government or the Western Carolina Master of Public Administration program, which I thought of taking, and I've gone through taken a lot of graduate business courses. People have probably covered civic engagement. They may have done a thesis on civic engagement, and that was extremely well done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Your version of civic engagement presentation was very well done, Rob.
Truly appreciate that compliment, Grant.
You're welcome.
Yes. Thank you for lifting that up, Grant. D, I see your hand raised. You have the floor. Oh, you're muted. You're muted, D. You're muted.
I'm so sorry. Forgive me. I am unmuted now. I just want to say it was well done. The presentation was. One of the things when I think about what is happening in Asheville, is there is poor allocation or poor availability of resources. And that's one reason why a lot of Black folks always clawing at each other, because of the meager resources, clamoring for that meager pile, if you will, of resources. Let me say that one of the first things that I always do when I engage folk, and I'm gonna tell you how I get folks' attention. I talk to them about money, because ain't nobody poor gonna do something for nothing because they can't afford to, okay? My job, and like you all got jobs, maybe you call it community engagement, maybe you call it advocacy. My job is to use my set of skills, which are accounting and business and data and all of that, and transfer those skills to folks who are like me, who came from nowhere, you know, from a teenage mother who was later orphaned, who grew up here in Asheville, too poor to live in housing. You know, back in the day, if you were really poor, you didn't get to live in public housing. You was just shunned everywhere, okay? So you were relegated to shotgun shacks, you know. Other folks who were better off than you lived in housing. And so I know what it's like. I'm a native of this city and I know the lay of the land. But let me just say that you don't get anybody's attention. If you're trying, the difference in power in neighborhoods, and I live in one of the third most powerful neighborhoods in Asheville right now, which is Kenilworth, is that folks have resources. If you don't have resources in this city and anywhere else, you are marginalized. And so the way I get people's attention, number one thing is I know how to make money. I've had to learn how to make money, and I can teach them how to make money. The other thing is I've stopped beating my head against the wall. I only work with people who want to work with me, okay? And if they want some money and some resources, I'm your girl. If you don't, you know, you go somewhere else. And that's just all there is to it. But one of the things we got to do is understand that all of us have skills and abilities, and everybody doesn't have the same ones. And the only thing that I've got going for me right now is the ability to know how to collect data, to use it, and to tell the city and the county that you've been, you know, spending this money to help our so-called people all these years, and yet the data shows we're farther behind and worse off than we ever have been, okay? Which means that you need to take this money and you need to reallocate it to somebody who may know what they're doing with performance metrics and rubrics. And that is the long and short of it. Heretofore, I didn't know how to break through, but I finally figured out a way. And I figured out a way to how to organize. And the only thing that I noticed, the most powerful thing in the Black community is the Black church. They own the most real estate. They got a congregation or a group of people. There's just methodology. That's all there is. And then there's results. And the problem is nobody's going to, you look in this meeting, you don't have anybody probably in this meeting that really needs to be in this room, because they so down and out, they ain't got time to be talking about it. They need money and they need resources. I do root cause analysis. And if you don't have that to offer them, you're not going to be able to hold them. And that is what is wrong. If you look at every stat that the Black community has in Asheville, we are the poorest, we are the sickest, we have the shortest lifespan of any African Americans in the state. We're stopped by police and traffic stops more than any African Americans in the state. We have the worst business formation rates. We have the lowest revenues. You name it. This is it's the last outpost. So the only reason why I've been successful, and when I saw the Dogwood Health Trust bite the other day, if somebody had told me that 6 months ago, I said, ain't no way. Ain't no way. But let me tell you something. The state that we're in is an embarrassment to the city of Asheville. It has to be. So one of the things that I've learned, like I told you, is that a root cause analysis is necessary. And a whole lot of talk is not going to garner community engagement. These people want to know how they can get paid. And we have to learn how to monetize, how to use whatever skills we have to transfer. And so that's what I'm about the business of doing, and showing it to people so that they can be their own best advocates. And that's it. That's about all I'm gonna say about it tonight. But that was a great presentation.
Thank you, Dee, for giving your rich essence, as always, for sure. It looks like, Rob, you did have a question come in through the chat. It says, Rob, what do you see as keeping Asheville from comprehensively targeting and implementing these different tactics?
Simply pure will and not wanting to redistribute resources and power. That's really all it boils down to. You know, it gets caught up and tied into bureaucracy, and they hide behind the bureaucracy and the policies, but a lot of it is actual will to want to do these things. It's a lot more work. You know, everything what I explained, like if you look at the downsides of thick engagement, it's a lot more work. It's more resources, it's more people, it's more intentional. And you know, it's the only true way forward that I see, and to get the resources to where they need to be at. I mean, right now we've got the prime opportunity in history to redirect a massive amount of resources to our community officially. Now, a massive amount has already been redirected from legislation and from the political and social climate, right? Like, how many businesses have been funded over the past few months? How many organizations have given specifically to communities of color because of our social and political environment that is the ripple effects of everything that happened last year? But this right here is, if we let this slip, you know what I'm saying, 20 to 40 years from now, when we look back on this, and when our children looking back on that, they gonna hold their head down in shame. Like, what was they thinking? They let them get away with this? Look at what they gave. Look at what we got out of this. And so that's why I'm like, we got to get everything what Ms. D. Williams stated. We need money. That's what this is all about. This is about money. This fight is about money. True indeed. I gotta say, I agree with that perspective. From everything that I've seen, and money, if you want to be real, money is what's keeping a lot of these tactics from being implemented. I mean, if you want to pull back that full layer, it's money. People are being paid to maintain these systems. And there are a lot of behind the scenes conversations and groups. And, you know, you start talking about planning and zoning and development of a city, that is billions. That's money right there. And people want certain things to happen. They don't care who it's affecting negatively. They still want it to happen because of money. They want that money. So when you come in and you start talking about like, nah, y'all can't do that, we fighting back. These same people that really know what's going on, the greater community don't see what's going on. The greater community don't see the money that is circulating through Asheville, and it's billions. I mean, billions. You know where it ain't circulating at is in our communities. It ain't there. And what's so crazy is that if they did the right thing with our communities, the city would actually make more money. This has been proven. But I don't have the time to go through the explanation of economic development and how divestment in our communities has cost Asheville upwards of 30 million in 10 years. You know, just in tax revenues that they would have gotten off of Black homes had they still been there instead of these vacant lots. But, you know, that's another story. They hurt themselves.
Thank you for lifting that up, Rob, and offering some resolve towards solution. And of course, resources are going to stay at the forefront because we don't work for free. You know, we want to make sure that our time and our energy is valued and compensated in how we show up in spaces. Looks like we had something else show up in chat. Thanks, Grant, for lifting that up. Y'all have an opportunity to read his comment. I want to amplify. Is there any more questions that anyone has before we, any questions, anything circling around that we want to lift up before we go into talking about community next steps, what's going on, what's happening, coming down the road? Awesome.
Next steps, community engagement for me is definitely doing my best to uplift the Black Town Hall, and get that restarted and make sure it's inclusive as possible. All Black people. That's who I'm fighting the hardest for right now.
You have a date for that, Rob?
Not yet. I would say within the next month or so.
Okay.
It really depends on how, the coronavirus. So it depends on how we plan on having it. Are we gonna do it outdoor where we can comply with social distancing, indoor, but like it's gotta be some in-personal gathering type stuff. Like if coronavirus wouldn't even hit, like I truly feel like I may be on a completely different organizing level, but it takes a lot out of organizers when you take that in-person aspect away. Like how you supposed to build a relationship with somebody through a screen? Anyway.
Well, I'd have to say I feel like I've done it pretty efficiently over the past
We
couple.
learn now. We adapt. I did it efficiently. I tell you, I think we all did. Everybody on this call did it efficiently, but
Yeah.
I think we'd all be in a better situation had we had more more tools at our disposal.
Agree. And this is that part about growing capacity, because we had to deal with what we had very quickly. We had a lot of things that we were told for a long time. No, it's not possible. No, you can't work from home. No, you can't do this. A pandemic changed those no's quicker than any plea or story that we could have ever told or may have already been telling for years. So what that taught us as a collective is there's an opportunity to consider something else that's possible. And I encourage you all in your leadership capacity, no matter what rooms you're showing up, have that limitless mindset accompany you as you're going forward. Like that is that shift from that deficit mindset of, well, historically, I know you haven't helped. Historically, you've been oppressive. Historically, you've taken away. Those things are true. And because I've thought about that, because I've have my lived experience expertise, because I have the voice of those that are around me that are looking for something to change, we're not only talking about the historical context, but we are zooming into the future. Planning and development happens in 10 to 20 to 30-year blocks of time. So what we're working on now, what you all are mobilizing in Asheville, the manifestations of it, for some of you, you're 20 years into your attempt where you begin. For others of you, you're in your first 5 to 10 years, and it may be frustrating, but keep going, because the outcomes are not necessarily for you. It is for your children's children. It is for your bloodline that is there. It is for those that may transplant into this community and grow roots in a place that you established to be a safer place, because you were fully committed to being a part of that change. So I have seen that in all of you, and so grateful to see that illuminating in what you all bring to the table, all the assets, all the brilliance, and how you all are all joints to supply in a different language. So me, as I guess I would be considered a digital outsider looking in, I see a beautiful opportunity. I see a lot of beautiful, I call it potential energy and kinetic energy, right? Potential is what someone could do if, right? Well, I've seen you all do with what you had in your hand, what access you were given based on who opened the door or held the door open for you. Whatever that is, you all get to continue that and maximize how you all intentionally come together. Oh my gosh, a Black Town Hall, that is a powerful next step that you all can look at how to collaborate. And you all are connected to groups of people that may not necessarily be represented on this call, but you absolutely know how to galvanize and organize. And I love what Dee said. said money motivates. Absolutely. And when we take away these illusions of us versus them and trying to treat people in the realm of otherness because they don't have money, or they feel like their power isn't equitably valued in a monetary exchange, even your knowledge has a monetary value when it comes to what's the result of it, whether it's a narrative in somebody's grant process that they ask you some information on, or whether it's put into a proposal for something new and what's possible based on the work that you're doing. So I thank you all for looking at ways to continue this engagement, and then also challenging each other to what comes into what's next. I wanted to lift up before we close for tonight that there is an opportunity for engagement coming up. We talked about what's next. We've had some examples of what is currently going on and how to get involved in the momentum. And we also talked about reparations. And so this is leading into us having a moment. And I'm going to have, if Miss Brenda Mills can share with us, we have an opportunity coming up next month in June that there's going to be the Reparations Speaker Series kicking off on June 3rd. So I'll yield the floor to you to share updates around that and more details, please.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you all of you who have kind of stood in there and held out over the last few months with this community engagement. Part of the process of what you guys have learned is taking who you are and going out to your connections, your community, that you surround yourself with, whether that be a large or small group, and you encouraging people to stay involved. I know Rob has done a lot of that. Dee's done a lot of that. Most of you I'm still getting to know. I know Tyshawn's done a lot of that. Sometimes you have to bring people kicking and screaming, but you have to be a part of this process. So the reparations will start with a speaker series that will be moderated by Dr. Darren Waters. There'll be some national speakers. There'll be some local panelists. The idea is to have the truth telling so that we can kick that off. That would be in June. I'm just going by a schedule I'm trying to remember, but I think July and August is forming the task force for reparations. Please seriously consider who you'd like to either amplify yourself or someone else. Get them prepared to consider being a part of that reparations task force. Keep in mind, we're not asking people to do this. This is probably a 2 or 3 year process. So the city will be reimbursing people, providing, whatever they need to continue to support that. And then in the fall, kicking off their efforts to get started with a first report to come to council January 2022. So June 3rd, 10th, and 17th at 6. We are planning on a hybrid meeting so people can either be it, because we're still trying to deal with COVID. Understand people are still kind of wary about getting out with other people. So it will be a hybrid meeting where you can come virtually or you can come in person at the not the USA Center, but the Harrah's Civic Center downtown. And so more of that's coming out. There's a project page, I believe. If it's not going live tomorrow, it'll be Monday, and I'll be glad to get that out. I think most of you are on my email list, and I will get that out, and we will put that out as a city. They're supposed to be getting me something to put in the neighborhood news also for Sunday. So please consider attending those speaker series. I know it's not always possible to come to every meeting, but please encourage your realm of influence to be there, because this involves you, Black people. And so you need to really have your say about, the truth telling is important. We got asked a question today about what if people come upset, or what if, you got to let people have their feelings. These people lost a lot. I mean, I've heard the stories for almost 29 years. It is atrocious, the things that were done here. And then in the following years, as Dee and Rob and all of you have said, there hasn't been a giving back or a making whole that has been done. Most of you know Deborah Campbell is our city manager. We had some meeting with some African American leaders, for informal or for informal leaders before I left for vacation. That is the first time a city manager and an executive team has met with anyone in the community, and that is going to continue. And one of the things I'll leave you as I amplified, thank you, Shemekka. You've been awesome to work with as usual. Soon we'll be a year together, won't we, Shemekka? And, but I just want to say that a former pastor of mine who's now passed away said something that was didn't understand it at the beginning, but people don't do what you say, they do what you keep saying. And government is not going to listen because you said it. They're going to listen because you keep saying it, because you don't let them off the hook. I'm not comparing white and black people, but white people, because they do have some time and some whatever, they don't let it go. I mean, it might not be the same person emailing and calling every day, but they're emailing and calling. And, you know, it's unfortunate that the squeaky wheel gets the oil, but that's how the world's working right now. So you guys have power and influence that you know not of, and you need to exercise that power and influence. And it shouldn't just be certain voices; it's all voices. So if there's ever anything I can do to help support or connect you with anyone, just let me know. Thank you, Shemekka.
Thank you, Brenda. Certainly appreciate your partnership and being present with us in our time together. Thank you all for your commitment. For those of you that identified as people with lived experience facing inequities in the academy, definitely make sure that you've made contact with me or I've connected with you, because we want to make sure that by the end of this month, you not only get your honorariums, but for those that have come to all 4 sessions, will also get a thank you package just for your partnership and wanting to let you know. You'll see an email come out for that. As more information is released around the first phase of this reparations journey around the speaker series, I will share that with you all, as well as ways to continue your engagement with that. Thank you, Rob, tonight for giving of yourself, pushing through and illuminating a way of being that really shows us what's possible, and accompanying research, data, and practices that have really worked around community engagement. And Dee, thank you for your brilliance you illuminated last week in sharing that expertise. All of you, if this is your first time catching it tonight and you want to check in and see how the other sessions were, please know that all sessions are uploaded on YouTube on the City of Asheville. There's a playlist, that link that I sent out to you, and this one will be uploaded and added there. So anyone that you want to definitely encourage them to get involved and want to help them kind of see what happened in the academy or what framework ideas that were already shared, then have them look it over. You can use it as a way of engaging and learning about where you all are collectively, if someone that does want to come in and align. And I just want to lift up again, the commitment here has been that everyone wants to pretty much stay engaged and want to be intentional about that. So I thank you all for that openness and interest and willingness to connect with one another outside of how we're convening here with Academy. Peace and blessings to each and every one of you. Thank you again for your dedication and commitment. Have a good night, everyone.
Okay, now I do this.